Hi and welcome to a weekly update. This is Kim speaking on Monday, the 17th of October. So looking at the euro dollar first, and before I just actually talk about the euro itself and talk about the technicals here, just looking at some fundamentals for this week ahead, looking at some key data releases, looking at US data first, and then with each currency I'll run through their particular major releases, but as US is the other side to all the pairs I'm going to be trading or talking about, just covering the US off first. So this week it starts off quite quietly. Monday, we do have a speaker later today uh, speaking at the doing a speech called Low Interest Rates. So it's the FOMC. Yep. Discussing low interest rates at the Economic Club of New York. So that might create some volatility about 5:15 today, but thereafter, really inflation figures on Tuesday. Very key figures here. Expectation of it to stay flattish, may drop a little bit, bearing in mind the stronger dollar that we've been seeing coming through. But that's really taken a boost this week last week rather than last month. So we'll be interesting to see what happens there. Any continuation in that sort of inflation or holding inflation, any positive figures for the US inflation would create even more dollar strength. Leading to Wednesday, US wise, not a lot. Housing permits, building permits, not a big mover by any means. And finishing the Thursday off, we got some manufacturing data, etc. Another FOMC speaker due to speak in New York City's economic history. Okay, right. Okay, so not massive in terms of the ways that the speakers are in it or US data, but well, the CPI figure is quite a key figure. That, as I say, that could show signs of softening though. Okay, now I'm going to move into looking at the Euros data, Eurozone data that's coming out this week, and just discuss that. And we'll look at the technicals. Now we've already had data out this morning, which is the final CPI, which has got no real kick to the market, and it came out as expected, but the individual countries already reported, so nothing to look at there. We have got Draghi speaking to deliver the welcoming remarks at the ECB conference later today, 6:35. He doesn't normally slip up or any other data at that point, particularly as on Thursday there's the ECB press conference at 1:30, and of course the interest rate decision at 12:45. So and there's an EU summit actually later on Thursday and Friday. So we've got plenty of potential economic summits or a summit there for data coming out later in the week. So let's look at the euro and see where we are. Well, weekly wise, as I said last on Monday, we had the chance of this continuation to the downside, and eventually got it. Now, when you look at it on a daily bar here, you can see it didn't really start moving until last Monday, and then Tuesday kicked out, broke the bottom, then continued. Now, I did a rough measure of the range of the wedge there, because generally we'll see the wedge moving from the lows here, but as it breaks the lows, it gives us a bit of a guide. That still points us down to potentially the S3. Seeing a bit of a push up this morning after opening slightly lower than Friday's lows. Friday's lows itself, just to me, would suggest continue downside. However, as I say, we're seeing this movement at the moment, and it may give a bit more of a retracement for shorts to get in and see if we can ride it down to the S3. Overall here, I'm still bearish, but less bearish than I was last week because of the potential support areas coming in also across here. Horizontally, we've got some support areas not far below us, so we may see a bit of support coming from those areas. Okay, looking at the pound dollar then, and firstly, just discuss through the fundamental news that's due out, the main data coming out for the UK this week. Well, tomorrow we've got inflation. It's pretty key, a key number. It's expected to be rising slightly from 0.6 previously to 0.9 is the forecast. The weaker pound's been coming through for some time, and that will have an effect on, or it's likely to have an effect on inflation. It's not necessarily demand built inflation. Important figure though, on Wednesday we've got the monthly jobs figures coming out. Average earnings is much more significant here, and as well as of course the unemployment rate, but the It'll be looking at how many the claimant count change, etc. This is really important following what was a reasonable month last month, whether this is following through into October. Looking on from there, we've got retail sales coming out on Thursday. And that's pretty much, that's the most significant. There are a few speakers coming out, speaking at different business schools, etc. And anything else, just looking, nothing else there of significance. So there are a couple of speakers, but nothing major. So that's where we're sitting at the moment. From a fundamental point of view, technically it looks still very weak in terms of the shape from the dailies. Let's just come back and look at the weeklies here, and well, it just really just carried on heading south last week. Now back to the dailies. It's currently below the monthly S3. One thing to bear in mind, I mean, generally we close at least within the S3, so but we've still got a lot of months to go yet, and it's a funny old time, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw further downside overall. In what we've got here at the moment, though, is the last few days since Tuesday, we've really Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all inside bars, so it's just a consolidating phase we're going through there, smaller ranges. Again, as with the euro, we saw ourselves opening slightly lower than Friday's lows there, and it's just fiddling around at the moment. We've got potential for a bit more upside. We've got the weekly pivots above us, as has the euro, so those may be possible upside targets. We may just see it sort of pull back within to Friday's range during today even, but overall it does look bearish in the bigger picture there, and unless there's some really great figures coming through, the chances are we will still be sliding south. Dollar yen, let's have a look at the bigger picture. And then before we do that, I'm just going to look at the key data coming out this week on the yen. There's barely anything. We got Friday, we got the Bank of Japan governor speaking, so, and that's a tentative time, so there's nothing else of any significance here for me. So what we're sitting at, well, I talked about it last week. We had the pivot swing sitting there on the weeklies. It's pushed up from that, run back into the, and just about broken up through that. Could have some more upside on this. Again, as I said, it's really US dollar dependent on sitting here, but it certainly looks like it could. It closed just above that 21, so there is the potential for some further upside. Looking at it from a daily perspective, well, we had this wedge that was sitting there. Normally, as I said last week, they tend to break to the downside. This one, we've seen a change of trend, and we could see a continuation to the upside. Looking through the week, though, it's a bit like cable in terms of the very range bound and the overlapping bars effectively. Now, at the moment, to me, it's erring on the upside, so I had to remain relatively bullish on the yen. The Aussie dollar, so well, the wedge still sits there. It didn't quite break that. It's just run through the fundamental data that's coming out this week, and well, we've already had a speaker. Let's look tomorrow. We've got the monetary policy meeting minutes, which could be quite a mover at 1:30 a.m. And then really we'll leave the more key data really will be on Thursday. We've got the employment figures coming out on Thursday. Always gives some good volatility around that figure, again at 1:30 a.m. So it is a week of employment figures. Okay, looking at the dailies then, and well, the dailies remain in a bit of a choppy pattern. We've had this sort of spike either side of this movement last week, never really gave us too much of a clue. Last week I was bearish. It did continue down there until the 13th. We've got a pivot swing appeared on the dailies here, which, well, if you see a break of the upside, possibly we could push on upwards back towards that upper trend line and continue to the upside. But to me, the way I'm looking at the moment is too choppy. A break of these lows would see me, let me draw the low band on there, would see me being more bearish. But I'm in a neutral zone here, or the currency is in a neutral zone, so nothing else I can do with that. Canadian dollar, well, I said it last week and I'm saying it again because it's important to bear in mind that the price of oil is pushed up. Generally, when we see the price of oil pushing up, we see the Canadian dollar coming down. It's eased up on this movement because of the strength of the US dollar, which is obviously making, to an extent, it's reducing the oomph in the price of oil in some respects, but it's certainly reduced the oomph in the movement on the Canadian dollar. It did come off though overall in the week. We're still in this sort of rising wedgie type pattern here. Maybe if we see a break of last week's lows, we could be coming back to that original trend line, and then a test of that would possibly see us in a bigger move to the downside. But that could be a couple of weeks to do in the way it's been running. And when you look at the dailies, you can see it's been chopping like anything here. Really difficult to put a proper direction on this. It's still erring with the higher lows, higher highs towards the upside here, but last week's sort of movement, well, we put actually just a fractionally lower high in on the on the 13th there, so slightly lower high coming in, and well, it could just roll over. If we see the lows pushing in of Friday's lows start taken out, I'd be much more bearish, and perhaps we could be seeing the effect of oil having a bigger effect on the Canadian dollar. Okay, that's pretty much it for me. I've got nothing else to say on this market, so I've run through everything else. I beg your pardon, I didn't look at the fundamentals on the Canadian dollar. Let's just do that and just check. There is some news out on the Canadian dollar tomorrow particularly. We've got manufacturing sounds okay, there's very little movement, but we've got the monetary policy reports and rate statements etc. on Wednesday, so 3 o'clock Wednesday afternoon. Could get some good volatility running through. Some press conferences later in the afternoon, 4:15, and then we've got inflation coming out later in the week on Friday, so, and retail sales, so some data that may create a bit of volatility and get the Canadian dollar moving again. That's it for me. Have a great week. Bye.